Hi everyone, good morning. Welcome back to Pine Hollow out of Diagnostics. We got a Dodge Charger today from California, 2013 model, 118,000 miles, and long story with this one. Now, the customer didn't just drive from California to bring it here. He's visiting someone in Pennsylvania, and he's been having some issues with this thing. So, a couple of years ago, I think, he said it overheated and it needed head gaskets, heads, you know, the works. They got it back on the road. It drove fine for a while. Then he said he was driving cross country and check engine light came on. He went to some random shop and they told him needs a fuel pump. I mean, the car ran fine. So they changed out the fuel pump. And he thinks it wasn't OEM. He doesn't know what the code was. So already we're digging down the wrong hole here. Then he said, you know, the car ran fine after that, supposedly, but it stalled out on him. He said he had a fuel gauge was showing quarter tank, but it stalled out. Apparently, it ran out of gas. So, however, the fuel pump was replaced. Apparently now the fuel gauge doesn't work correctly. And he took it to another shop, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we can look into it." They found some float was catching on something. Still wasn't working right. Then they rewired something inside the tank, and now when he fills it up, the gauge shows half a tank, and when it drops to empty, you still have half a tank left. So it's getting worse. The more shops he takes it to, it gets worse and worse. He also said that there's a rough idle at a stop sign. That was the original complaint. He thought it was a fuel pump, so that's why he had the fuel pump replaced. I don't know. The details are questionable, but bottom line is now it runs fine. He was surprised that, you know, he brought it here for a rough idle complaint and the fuel gauge problem, but it's running perfect. And we took it for a test drive. He was like, "This car's possessed. I don't know why it's running perfect." I'm like, "Well, we'll fix what's broken, the fuel gauge." So here's what it shows right now. About a third of a tank, but he filled it up not too long ago, so it's probably more like 3/4 of a tank. If we, in the PCM, we do have a P2066 fuel level sensor 2 performance. So let's do some research on that code, see how the system is laid out. I know it has two sending units because it's rear wheel drive and the tank is like split, so that adds to the complexity. But let's do some research on all data. Alrighty, P2066 fuel level sensor 2 performance. So theory of operation, fuel level sensor information is a bus message to the PCM from the body control module. That's key. The fuel level rationality will set a fault for a fuel level reading that does not change over an accumulated mileage threshold to keep stuck high or stuck low fuel levels from disabling OBD monitors. If the vehicle is fitted with a saddle tank fuel system, feature includes diagnostics for both of the sending units. For siphon tube has become disconnected or plugged. The power-up test looks to see a large enough fuel level voltage change from the last key off to the following engine run. Engine run test looks to see fuel level voltage change over an accumulated mileage. Okay. So there's two fuel level sensors. Primary side of the tank has the filler tube inlet near the bottom, contains a fuel pump module. During fuel tank fills, fuel must overflow the primary side to reach the secondary side of the tank. As fuel is consumed, a siphon tube is used to draw fuel from the secondary side to the primary side. Because the siphon tube flow rate exceeds the fuel consumption rate, the secondary side of the tank will be empty before fuel is depleted from the primary side. Okay. Fuel level sensor 1 is located on the primary side of the tank. Fuel level sensor 2 is on the secondary side of the tank. Set condition. So the PCM detects no change in fuel level sensor 2 circuit voltage after a significant amount of fuel should have been consumed based on a calculated value. Alright. So it's not a circuit code, it's more of a rationality code. Visually inspect fuel tank, replace fuel tank if necessary, fuel tank sensor circuits DTC set in the BCM. There's no circuit codes in the BCM. Inspect fuel tank, any problems found, PCM. So not too helpful here. The wiring diagram, this is redrawn. There's our fuel pump module top of fuel tank, and we have secondary and primary signals going right to the BCM, and then the BCM calculates whatever fuel level and sends it to the PCM. So 3 wires. I was also looking at neighboring or related trouble codes. So this is P2068, fuel level sensor 2 circuit high, and this one actually gives you a diagram. There's our BCM, there's our fuel pump unit, and interesting note here is when the fuel tank is completely empty, the fuel level sensor should read at or near empty, indicated by a voltage reading of approximately 4.3 to 4.5 volts. So that's a great piece of information there. So we know that the BCM sends out 5 volt sensing circuits on these 2 level sensor wires, and then the floats pull those signals down. So when the floats are low, I guess the resistance is higher and it doesn't pull down the signal as much. So we should go about 4.5 when it's empty to 0.5 when it's full. And they say make sure you have enough fuel to put back in the vehicle to make a good determination of a fuel sensor 2 voltage feedback. Primary fuel level sensor voltage should decrease as fuel is added until it reaches near full. As fuel starts to overflow to the secondary tank, secondary fuel level sensor voltage should also start to decrease at a steady rate. Watch the secondary fuel level sensor voltage to change drastically while fuel is being added. If the voltage suddenly changes to near 5 volts, it would indicate a bad spot open on that portion of the sensor. Okay, great. So based on this information, I want to go into the BCM data pits and see if we can, if it reports both fuel level sensor voltages. Then we could drive the car around a little bit, see if the fuel is sloshing around, see if those voltages are changing, and kind of go from there. I have a feeling we're going to have to, if we go inside the tank, which is most likely, we have to drain some of the fuel off because, well, it's mostly full. And if you take those sending units out, they specifically say the tank needs to be less than halfway full because the fuel will just gush out because the sending units are kind of, sideways in the back of the tank. So let's take a look at the BCM scan data. Okay, so BCM is right here. I guess that's the gateway. And data stream, we're going to type in fuel. There we go, fuel level sense 1 and sense 2. Let's graph that. Fuel level sense 1, 3.7 volts. Fuel level sense 2, 1.8 volts. So this one is further down than this one, which kind of doesn't make sense. They said the primary side, the sensor 1, should be higher all the time because the pump is always filling up the primary side. Let's move the car around a little bit. Okay, so fuel might be sloshing around in there. 2.1, 2.2. Sensor 1 is just stuck at 3.7, completely stuck. Let me kind of go sideways. Okay, that's reasonable. Stabilizes about 2 volts. Look at this. This one is not changing whatsoever. I expect this one to be closer to like 1 volt because the tank should be pretty full on the primary side. So the code is a little misleading. Let me just drive it down the driveway here. So it went down to 0.5 and now it's back up to 1.5. So this means full, this means closer to empty. So now we're at 1.5, we started at 2.5 because we're facing downhill. Let me go back up, we'll turn the car back around. Now we're facing uphill, about 2.1, reasonable. That one is just flatline at 3.7 volts, the primary side. Okay, so actually I trust sensor 2. That seems to be working fine. Sensor 1 is the one we're going after. So let's read the procedure on how to remove this primary sending unit and see what's up with that float. So these are the 2 sides of the tank. So this is the pump here and all the wiring, 5 wires. And then this is where the fuel feed line attaches and goes to the engine. And this is like the secondary, siphon pump and output to the car. What do we see here? Well, I think this is the evidence of the wiring, weird wiring stuff. So we'll take a look at the pinouts. We'll unwrap this, see what's going on. I don't know why they replaced the actual plug. But to get this out, we'll need to probably drain the tank a bit. We'll probably just hook up a quick connect there and pump some gas out. So I also want to take note while we're here, the order of these wires. So we have a dark blue and orange, and then a skinny blue and white, a fatter black and orange, then skinny black, and then a skinny blue with a gray stripe, I guess. So let's see if that matches up the pinouts on the OEM diagrams. Alright, so here's our connector pinout for this fuel pump module. I guess pin 1, dark blue and gray, fuel level signal 2. So we're going to go from this side, that's the dark blue and gray, so that's pin 1. Pin 2 is the black, fuel level sense return. Okay, that fits. Pin 3 should be a dark blue and white, fuel level sensor signal. That's the black and orange, going a fat wire to the middle pin. Number 4 should be a black and orange ground. But in our case, number 4 is the dark blue and white fuel level sensor signal primary. Okay, this is kind of starting to make sense. And the last wire, pin 5, dark blue and orange, fuel pump control output. So that one's good. So we have 3 pins that are good, but it looks like these 2 are crossed. How is this fuel pump even running? If that's the power to the fuel pump, pin 4, the one next to it should be a ground, but it's not. It's one of the sense wires. This isn't making any sense at all. The ground is pin 3. This is so weird. We might have to put a scope on this and see what's going on. So I'm looking at pictures online, and sure enough, the 3 skinny wires are all in a row, and then the 2 fat wires are the last 2 pins. Something is really weird about this. Alright, so first check, amp scale around the power wire, about 11 amps. It's minus because it's going towards the pump, and current is coming back on the ground, about 12.3. so if I put both those together, it should be 0. But on the fuel pump, you can see the little markings on there. Plus and the minus should be here, and then TS, ES, D, PS, so primary, secondary. Why are these pins crossed? And then what's going on inside the tank? I want to see the wiring that goes to the pump. Okay, so we have 13 volts. The ground is on the black and orange, and my positive lead is on the blue and orange. So that makes sense. The pump is running. Let's go through all the wires and measure the voltages. So this wire right here, which is the blue and white, 8.2 volts. Does that make any sense? No, it does not. That should be the primary signal. Why is it 3.7? Let's go to the 4th wire. That should be a signal return. That's a ground, so that's normal. And then the last wires are primary signal, 5.4 volts. Okay, 5.4. So if we measure from the return, .6. So let me write that down. That's our secondary. And our primary is 8.5. 5.6 and 7.5, 8.5. Let me unplug the fuel pump. See, those 2 sense wires should go up to 5 volts. The car will stall out, obviously. Okay. So 12 volts actually. And look, they both say 5 and 5. And this one, .2. So are they 12 volt sense wires that's reported in a 5 volt scale? That really blows my mind. Let me take some notes. Okay, so keep your thoughts straight. Just write stuff down here. So from the wiring, this is the correct OEM pinouts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So level 2, return, level 1, fuel pump ground, fuel pump power. What we see on this car is pins 3 and 4 are swapped around. Why is that? The fuel pump still runs, and then the level signals, so there's actual voltage that we measured with the meter, and then scan data, BCM, reported. So there must be a conversion in there. So we measured actual on level 2 is 5.6. Scan data is around 2 volts, and it's variable. So fuel sloshing around, that changes. On level 1, actual is 8.5 volts, and scan data says 3.7, and it's stuck. It does not move at all. So all this information gives us enough evidence to say, hey, we need to at least partially drain this tank and go to this primary pump and see what the heck is going on. How are these wires reversed, and why is level 1 stuck? Just stuck. Is it attached to the float? Is the float stuck? What the heck is going on? So let me, the car's stalled out, so there's no fuel pressure right now. We can disconnect that quick fitting on the passenger side at the tank and just get a gas can, turn the fuel pump on, and just pump out all the gas, and at least 5 gallons, and we should be at a safe level where we can remove the primary pump. Alright, here's the draining setup. So S.U.R adapter kit to the rescue, 90-degree elbow, and then this valve is closed so nothing's going to shoot out of here. I just have that hose running into the gas can. Now the fuel pump I want to energize without the car running. So the fuel pump relay is right here. It's actually nice that they don't integrate it into the TIPM anymore. And 87 and 30 are those two. So I just want to see if, yes, so pin 30 is hot all the time. So all we need to do is put a jumper, fuse jumper from here to here, and the fuel pump should run when that connector is plugged in. Alright, let's try this out. Yep. Fuel pump is working. Got the maintainer, 13.5 volts. And this sucker should fill up pretty quickly. And that flow should be massive. Not like the Audi. Oh shit! Whoops, don't do that. So you have to watch this carefully. It's going to fill up pretty quick. So I'm just going to empty 5 gallons and try to take out that sending unit. So we can see level sense 2 is slowly rising. That means this side is getting depleted, but that side is not, because the siphon pump keeps filling that up. So we might have to drain quite a lot of gas out of here. Okay, so the pump is spinning really fast. It's not pumping anymore. We're only down at 2.5 on sensor 2. That's it. I only pumped out 5, 6, 7, maybe 7 gallons. So this thing had like half a tank. Let's shut off the pump. Let's open up the gas tank, see what's going on in here.